thought forms. What does that really mean? How are they created? Is it always spooky or harmful? Stay tuned to find out. Hello, everybody. My name is Chastity, aka the Luminary Lunabeams, and this is Shadow.
And I'm Emily, the fine art medium.
And we're two mediums and a cat that specializes in the paranormal. Our purpose is to shed light on what goes bump in the night. That's why we call this podcast YouTube channel
Lights of Midnight.
Lamp. Say meow. This is my
Bing!
new kitty.
And Ghost barked in the background. Perfect timing.
He helped us out. I was hoping I'd get a meow out of Shadow. But
Hmm.
yes, he's my new sweet kitty. He decided to join me for a second, so I'm going to put him back on my lap. Maybe. But today, guys, we're going to be talking about thought forms. So if you saw our last video, we did poltergeists, and we kind of cut it off because they're a little bit related, right? There's some similar things to consider when you talk about poltergeist and thought forms. But yeah, so we're going to go a little bit deeper into that subject and kind of cover what that means.
Hmm. I feel like the origin is very similar. Their
Yes,
construction is very similar.
yes. It's just about how far that poltergeist goes or that thought form goes. So, and later in the video, also created a little slideshow. It's only 28 seconds long. We're going to overlay that in because I wanted to get kind of a picture of what I was seeing, what it looked like. So I have made that little 28-second slide that you'll see throughout or at some point during this video. But we're just going to start off with what is a thought form. If you Google the word thought form, comes up with two distinctive things. Literally, it's about how we speak, how we feel. Thought form, we create those when we think. Okay. We're not necessarily talking about that today, though. The other form of thought forms is referring to the word theosophy. So, and that is a philosophical or a religious system that combines elements of ancient religions and myths with mystical insight to teach about God and the world. But in this case, we're just narrowing it down to the paranormal thought form. So, yes, there's multiple ways that you can use this word, but just for the sake of the video, only paranormal stuff.
Hmm.
But for me, when we use the term thought form, generally I feel it is associated with energy that has been released from a person. And this might be a good time to insert that clip that's released from the person and is created within their aura. And then it makes like a bubble of negative, dense energy that kind of separates out, but it still has a little bit of a link. And even when it fully separates, there's still like little links, like tentacles that it can pull from until it fully separates and becomes a conscious thought form. Okay. And the conscious thought form can make like a physical shape. So it just keeps collecting energy from around its environment. So that's what a thought form in this case means to us.
Well, I was gonna add too, because I've seen it be created from multiple ways. That is
Mm-hmm.
one way. And the other way that I've seen it be created is from the collection of energy, negative energy from multiple sources. So if you're in a location that gets a lot of negative energy that sits, it can also create something as well.
Agree. Yes. And, tragic events that we talked about this, big tragic events can create and can leave spirits behind. It's not always thought form energy. But if you think of like a war or something, and matter of fact, interestingly enough, well, you know what? I got a little story for us, but I probably should wait because I don't want to get too ADD sidetracked here. But yeah, you can actually have that energy collect in a space to where it creates a thought form. So, what's the difference between a non sentient and sentient thought form? So, a non sentient thought form is when the thought form doesn't have its own consciousness, it doesn't make its own moves. It's kind of just floating around, hanging out. You can have physical disturbances, okay, kind of like a poltergeist. And you can also have negative emotions, would be one of them. I've even seen, well, probably just staying with non-sentient, there's not too many paranormal side effects. Sounds, noises, things can move around, and just a general sense of dread. But Emily, do you want to tell the folks about a sentient thought form?
So a sentient thought form has its own like consciousness. It makes its own decisions. It like kind of has more of a purpose. It's not on autopilot like the other one. Um, and its overall objective is to collect more of that energy to feed off of, and so it can use that energy to oppress, or how I guess other people would consider it as haunting another person, place, or thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like both of them, though, their objectives are kind of still the same in trying to collect more. One's just
Mm-hmm.
more on autopilot, whereas the other one, like, makes the decisions on how to do it.
Right. And that's the general like term of a thought form if it's created. And I feel like this is an unconscious or an unknown thought form creation, because there are times that thought forms are created intentionally. And that can be done through religious practices, spiritual ceremonies, and witchcraft, certain types of witchcraft. So you have things like egregores. And I know there's one more that slipped my
Tulpa,
mind.
Tulpa.
Topa. That's right. So you have those as well that are considered thought forms, and they are created again. Like I said, even some Native Americans created thought forms, like what's it called, the Ikatomi. If y'all ever heard the thing, it has like spider legs and a cockroach body and like an alien chest and a person's head. You'll hear that story one day, if not tonight. But that's like an example of a thought form I actually come in contact with that I thought I was tripping until I actually found out it truly existed. And it was created by a Native American tribe. It's called a trickster energy, but it was also created during times of war. And once they're created, the person that created them can control them if they're created in a manner through like magic, so to speak. But once the person that created the thought form, it is said, like passes away, they get to run wild and do what they want. And that's kind of what I saw with this creature looking thing, like the freaking, it looked like a witch itself with spider legs. That's exactly what it was doing. It was doing its own thing, and it was sucking energy off of a patient in the hospital. Crazy.
Hmm. I feel like too, like how, depending on how and the reason why they're created, if the people aren't around too, like you said, they kind of do their own thing. But I also feel like that intention that they were created behind is part of like what they continue to do. So if the intention was to hurt other people because they're trying to win a war, whatever, they're gonna keep hurting those people even if there's no war to collect that energy and get stronger.
Yes. And matter of factly, where I was in the hospital setting, I'll just go ahead and tell you guys really quick. I've said it before in case you've heard it, but if not, um, I was with my mom. She was on a ventilator. It was during COVID, and I was on the floor with everybody that was on a ventilator. It was one of the quietest hospital halls I've ever been in. And I had been up all night, and I was sitting beside my mom's bed. We were hoping she was going to come off the ventilator that day. Thank God she did, because this was about 3 years ago. But as I was laying there, I got that mental picture of what I described. And this thing was up on the side of a bed, on top of a ventilator, on top of a person that had the ventilator. Literally, that ventilator is creating energy. It's a life force. It's creating, flowing oxygen basically through the patient. And it was like it was sucking them dry. And that's not the only time I've seen an entity be with somebody that was on some type of breathing apparatus. I also had that happen with one of my clients here locally. I visited her home saw the black shadow in the basement peek out at me, walked around, and when I got home, I went in remotely viewed it, went into like the astral realm of where it existed within her home. And I saw it, but it was much bigger and it spread out over her because I did it at night and it was literally laid on top of her. And this lady's oxygen level was 86 out of 100. And once I dealt with this thing, which it took a lot, I don't know, I mean, I had to use like my rainbow energy. I know that sounds crazy. I'm not going to get into any details because regular light did not work on this thing. It just cocked its head and like charged me until some other stuff happened. And the next day, once I got rid of it, that lady's oxygen level went up to 94 because my mother was sitting with her and I asked her. That's how I knew that thing went away because it was sucking her oxygen out of her life force. And that's what these things can do at their worst. Um, so thought forms are not to be taken lightly. They all have different functions. They all have different things. I don't know if that entity that I dealt with was a thought form per se, but I will say it was all black. It had no features. And sometimes that's how thought forms are, as you've seen in my little demonstration. They can kind of take the shape of a person and have person type qualities, but they're not a person. And sometimes I'll let Emily finish this. Sometimes they can have like exacerbated eyes or nose or mouth. Their mouths might be really big, or their eyeballs might be bulging out, or they have like really weird noses. That's just or long arms and short legs. Don't ask me why. This is just what we've saw.
Well, I feel like depending on the energy source, if the energy source is a person, I feel like it's going to take on features of that person from where that energy is from. And should I tell my story?
Yeah, we might want to be sensitive, but yeah. It's
Okay.
funny, but it's not. I'll just say this. It's kind of funny what we saw. Situation's not funny though.
hmm Okay. So, as y'all know, I live around the Philly area, and there's a lot of people that do illegal activities with illegal substances. And let's just say there was somebody nearby doing said activity. And as a result, that activity produced a thought form, and the thought form came through my house. And I kid you not, this thing was like the size of a toddler, and he's got a big head, big bulgy eyes, and is got some weird mouth with some teeth stuff going on. And it literally was like a cartoon like tweaker, if you want to call it that. And it's
Yeah.
just running through my house like ah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I would assume it probably could take on the features of a person. Like I can agree with that. But it also is just like picking up parts of other people that it can drain.
Yep.
So it's like a compilation of all kinds of stuff and just forming in odd ways. So if you're a person that can actually see into the spiritual realm, because these things exist in different layers, they are, how can I say this? They're closer to the earth realm than other entities can be. Because as we've talked about before, other entities that have more sentience, that are more powerful, that are like beings, they can go up and down dimensions because they're not actually physical like we are. These things kind of hang around the earth realm, like just behind the veil, from my experience.
hmm
So they have a different vibration. They can be black static sometimes. I've noticed black static in people's aura. As you've seen from the illustration, it's like a little bloop. Sometimes that's just one way. Kind of looks like, I'm not going to go there. Y'all probably got the mental image. That's the only thing I knew how to create it by. But you can get like black static in people's auras. And the thing about our aura is it exists. And, you have your chakras. Your chakras emanate colors in your aura, or colors, which are frequencies. And then they get stashed in your immediate aura. Because again, some people say it's 8 feet. Some people say it's 60 feet. Some people say it's infinite. I like to think that we can extend our aura. It's not always the same amount of feet that it's in and out, depending on where you're at, what vibration you're at. But the colors mean everything. This is one of the first two things I always say. The spirit told me was perception is everything. Colors mean more than you know. And this is one of those situations. We admit those colors within our field, but thought form energy would technically be made up, in my opinion, of murky colors, dark, muddy colors, or even black. And those are those hard, like low vibe energies. That's why it gets stuck in your aura. If you start to ascend or start to raise vibration, eventually it gets too big and it bloops out, or it can already be outside of your aura and there's like a leak in it almost. I don't know why it's been presented to me that way. That's kind of how it is. So our colors mean a lot more than you know, and our vibration determines what type of colors we have in our aura, our diet. It can even our health. There's all kinds of things. So this is why it's important to keep your vibes high and to try to do your best. It's hard. It's so hard. I'm one of the people, I struggle with that a lot sometimes, even being in the industry, I guess, or the person rather that I am. I know there's an afterlife, but I still feel things. I'm human. I'm meant to have a human experience here. So we're always going to go through things, but it's best to try to flush that stuff out. That's why we say do the work.
Hmm. I will
Absolutely.
I will say the thing I was talking about, its aura was like I would say a murky midnight blue color.
Yeah, that makes sense because that's not a really bright, vivid, happy color.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, so a thought form collects like energy once it detaches. So like attracts like. Same thing. I'm not going to say it that's 100% factual. I'm sure there's cases where it don't, but honestly, it's like it collects like energy to be able to continue to form. Not all thought forms are going to get super dark and malevolent. It's just going to depend on the situation and how they were created. When they're unintentional thought forms that are unknowing to the person that created it or the people or the situation, there's kind of a lot of aspects to it. But when you're if it's created in a way that's ritualistic, it's very intentional. So it'll have like a specific purpose. And they say it's best to, once that purpose has been done, to, go ahead and shut it down. So that's something that we do not personally do or intend on doing. So we can't really explain. I mean, Emily may be able to explain, but I can't really go much further in that because I've not looked on how to create a thought form. I mean, I don't want to know, honestly.
I feel like
Because
I do know how, but I feel like it would not be advantageous for the general public to know. Because I feel
yeah,
like people might take advantage of it and misuse that information, and I don't want that on over my shoulders.
right. And I don't want to even look into it
Hmm.
personally. Don't care to look into it because it a lot of times it's used for negative reasons. Now, is it always spooky or haunted? No. Thought forms, literally, we create those every single day. They exist within us. That's how spirits read our energy. They read it through our aura. Our thought forms are stuck, but eventually, they spread out. That's how they get out into the universe, it said, or whatever. So, not all thought forms are bad, but it doesn't, higher vibrational thoughts and energy do not create these type of lower dense things that get stuck here. They just don't. They're light, they're airy, they shoot straight up or they shoot out. They just don't. And that's just my opinion from what I've saw.
Hmm.
So
Would you say, because this is what I feel, it's like the unintentional ones that are created, I feel like for the most part, they don't reach a malevolency that the intentional ones can and do reach.
I think they can in the right circumstances because I've dealt with people that have thought forms around them that have been created by fear and it ends up sucking in like their thoughts or their worst fears and anxieties. And then they have the worst hauntings ever that can't be gotten rid of because the problem is not an outside energy source that's coming in. The problem is them.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
So, but it can turn into like your worst nightmare
hmm.
because if you're the type of person that's been really low, and this is not to be scary, most people aren't going to create a thought form. This is not extremely common. It's not 1 in 3. I wouldn't say it's 1 in 10, not me at least, like a negative type thought form or even a thought form. I think at some points in our life, Reiki healing, I was told to bring that up. Reiki healing is a good way to kind of purify these thoughts. But when you sit with these emotions, like the trauma, depending on what the trauma is, um, I'm feeling drawn to say this, and spirits want me to say this because I'm talking to somebody that's watching this video. I'm trying to figure out a way to say it. When, not all the time, okay, but when we're a victim of SA, sometimes, not always, we can create those thought forms. And then it turns around because a lot of the people that we have dealt with that have had dark hauntings, and they're not always like entities, like beings. Sometimes they are thought forms, and it's bred through the fear, and then they'll actually experience that again through paranormal sentences. It can be that bad sometimes. Sometimes it's not. But I think that someone that has had paranormal activity, that's went through a situation of such that's horrible, that never should have happened, that can you're more susceptible to creating something like that, or having something lower vibrational come after you and pick on that part, because that's like a scab that, it'll scab up, but it opens back up, like a lot of traumas, but specifically that one. I was led to say that, not to go too deep into it.
I agree. And that's why we always say, like, when you work on healing yourself, it's not even just the paranormal stuff, it's your mind, body, and spirit. You have to work on all of it. That includes your traumas, because it will pick on your worst traumas. And that is a good example of one way it can.
Yeah. And that goes into like one of the last things that we can talk about really today with thought forms is how do you get rid of it? Like Emily said, mind, body, spirit. You have to tackle all three. Do you have a few ways that you want to share, Emily?
Well, I always recommend meditation, but also therapy with a professional, because a lot of the thought forms are from inner turmoil, inner issues, traumas, and stuff. And honestly, a lot of people can't work on that on their own. And I feel like a mental health professional is probably the best route to go. And then obviously, like, cleansing your space, but I'll leave you to the more physical stuff.
Yeah, Reiki healing is a really good one. Like if but you with Reiki, my friend Connie reminds me of this, you have to do the work. So if you want, like, and this is not to be cocky or sassy, if you want me or Emily or your Reiki healer to fix you, and you want to go and want us to like poof, make it go away, it doesn't work like that all the time. Very rarely am I ever led to remotely view, astrally walked into somebody's space, which I can do, but very rarely does that happen anymore, because a lot of times it's something that we can do, or the my client can do themselves, that can slow this down, or it's part of a life lesson. Sometimes, like that little old lady, she couldn't get rid of that on her own. That's why I was sent in to do that for her. But you have to take care of yourself and your body. You can do chakra clearings at home with crystals like clear quartz and black tourmaline are two great ones to have. Even if you just have those two, you can rotate them up your chakra points. We can actually insert a little picture. I know most people probably know what that is, but just in case, I always start at my root. That goes along with the meditation that Emily's talking about. Different guided meditation practices would be good too. But yeah, definitely trying to clear out your body the best you can and get the therapy. Obviously, like she said, clearing and cleansing, but that's really important with the body and a thought form. But once the thought form has gone too far, that's when it's external. But if you get in that mind frame of like, okay, I created this, I can also destroy it. And you get in that kind of mind frame of like, not today, this ain't happening. You will notice over time, as you continue to do your spiritual practices and routines, take care of your mind and your body, you'll notice like if it was things get knocked over, or a knock or a sense or a sensation, it'll start diminishing. And, there's different things. It's hard to know what you're dealing with if you don't have spiritual eyes or you're not in tune with your guides, to just have that knowing, that gut feeling. That's why it's important. If you're having something severe, to reach out to somebody that can help. And they may only be able to help so much depending on what it is. I've also noticed, one last thing is like a recurrence in hauntings throughout people's lives that have dealt with haunting situations before, that it just keeps getting brought back up. There's cycles. It happens in cycles sometimes with some people. Some people are able to grab it by the gonads and deal with it. And then some people deal with it, but that fear still lingers on. When you can control that fear, that's the most important thing to combat something like this. If you're on the receiving end of somebody that creates something nasty, that's like a thought form. They either create something nasty, this is darker stuff, okay? Or they send a being or an entity that's nasty. That takes a whole different level, than kind of what me and Emily do in a way. I think that would be a situation where you might want to find somebody that's really keen on witchcraft, to be honest. Like, we're not technically witches. I like my herbs. Emily likes her herbs, and stuff, but we do a little work. But, and I use a little bit of that work when I do my clearings, but that's not really our area expertise. And there's a level of a lot of paranoia I find with my clients too, that somebody's hexed me or cursed me. The easiest way to deal with that is just send it back. But if it's into something bigger or greater, or you're having a visitor, that's when it's time to look into stuff. So,
Hmm.
yep. You have
Yeah,
anything else you want to add? I'm sure you do, because I don't think I can think of anything else besides that.
I would say the majority of my clients think that someone hexed or cursed them. And
Hmm.
I will agree with like the fear mindset too. Like once I got rid of that, I got less attacks. And also when I healed one of my big traumas, I don't have that as a form of a psychic attack anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. It's basically, you have to get to the origin, to the root. It's a term that Spirit gave me when we started Lights at Midnight. Origin, very important.
Hmm.
So that's the biggest thing. And you'll notice that a lot of times we repeat the same things in these, because it's kind of how it works. There's only so many things you can do. It's just about finding what works for you, because what works for you doesn't work for everybody. Because there's different levels, there's different religions and spiritual practices. We are two American females that are influenced by Western and Eastern stuff, so in spirituality, it's kind of a modge podge, but there are different people for different things. So, but that's how we deal, and we've dealt with thought forms. I think that's it. I think that's
Hmm.
pretty much it. So, quickly before we go, couple shameless plugs.
I have Oracle cards. Pre-sale. Link will be somewhere in the bio. And if you're interested in helping raise funds for that project, again, link will be down below. We already got 5 backers, and once I hit that 15K goal, we are going to be into print, baby, and I will be printing 1,000 copies. Pre-sales have the quantity of 500 copies, so you better get them before they sell out. Um, and yeah, I mean that's my big one for right meow. What
Yep.
about you?
And I'm thinking about opening my class roster back up for my Manifesting with the Moon class, because I had to postpone it due to the passing of my mother and then a bunch of other crazy stuff. And then I should have my journal coming out to match that by the end of the year. Y'all pray for me. And if you like paranormal content, please go to my other channel, Our Appalachian Nightmare. I go on investigations about once a month. We just went to Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary, caught some wild things there. And then next Saturday, so a week from today, I'll be going to the Trivet Clinic, however you want to pronounce it. And we have a full investigation. It's just going to be me and my fiance V and maybe my sister, and we have it all night to ourselves. So I'm going to try to do some really cool psychic stuff. Definitely the link to mine and Emily's stuff is always in the description. So you have a link to our link trees individually, but if you press the Lights at Midnight link tree down at the bottom, you have the link to mine and Emily's link tree. It's like link inception. So you'll find it if you poke around. But I'm sure I have some other things, but that's all I can think of for right now. But yeah, guys, I guess we're going to end it there. If you have any questions about thought forms, just leave them in the comments below. And yeah, until next time, say bye.
Oh, it's so cute.
Peace out.
Peace.
Hey, if you have a haunted story you want to share, you can email us at lightsatmidnightpodcast@gmail.com. Get in touch with us there. We'd love to hear from you. We really appreciate y'all hanging around and checking it out. And yeah, thank you so much. We are super excited to bring you some super awesome content. We really appreciate you guys checking us out.
Thank you to all that took the time to listen to this week's episode. Your support means the world to us. And remember, all of us have the ability to shine brightly and shed positivity, even in the darkest of places. Stay safe, stay well, and light it up!